Okay, so now that we've taken a look at the basic categories and some of the different shapes and waves available to us, let's dive a little deeper into the oscillator itself. So where do I want to put this when I zoom? Yeah, it looks like a good spot. We can zoom in here, and we'll just be working with oscillator 1 currently. So you can scroll through the wave shape here, of course, but you've also got some different things going on down here where you've got effects that you can apply, and we can adjust the semitone, and we can detune. Well, now we're not going to hear too much of an effect there by using just a single oscillator, so let me turn on oscillator 2, and I'll have to probably zoom back out just a little bit here to get access to what I need, which is the detune on oscillator 2. So you can get some really cool wide stereo field image and sounds happening when you start to mess with the semitones and the detuning aspects. So yeah, I'm going to turn oscillator 2 back off. We're going to zoom back into 1, get my mouse in a good spot here. All right, so that's the advantage of the semitones and the detuning, and you can do that in a positive and negative manner. Get it back to 0. And that's probably a good tip. One of the things that's really cool throughout Ableton 10, not just within Wavetable, but if you want to get things back to a default setting, I'll just move that up, and then I double click, move this down, double click. So just a double click on whatever parameter or whatever you're working with gets you back to a default setting. That's throughout Ableton 10. So just a quick tip there. Anyhow, moving on, what we've got here is a drop-down menu for different effect types that we can use. So the first one is FM, so we can apply an FM effect to our wave. Let me scroll this up a little bit. So now I can tune. Not really hearing too much going on there, but it's probably because we don't have an amount assigned. So let's say we tune it up a little bit and then apply an amount. Now you're starting to get a little bit more of a money shot of what's going on there. And yes, if you're wondering, these are all modulatable, if that's the correct terminology. But you can assign all these to be modulated. How about we just go that route in trying to describe it? So that's the FM. Let's take a look at our classic effect. So now we've got pulse width and sync. So let me do this though. Let me go back to basics so we can get a better look at what this is going to do and how this manipulates the wave shapes. So pulse width, you can see there, it starts to move in a positive and negative fashion either way you go here. But what you're seeing is the wave shape start to get that, squished or scrunched, and then it's flat out here. So, and that's the positive and that's the negative. So, and then here is the sync. And one of the things that's good to use hard syncing for is if you're developing a lead sound. That's pretty good area to think of hard syncing. I'm not saying you have to, and it's not the end-all be-all, but if you're developing a lead sound and you add a little hard sync to it, if you really fine-tune that and listen to it within the mix, you can hear your lead start to cut through the mix itself instead of just kind of be laying in the middle, maybe buried slightly by other instruments. It'll start to kind of poke through a little bit. That hard sync gives it a little bit more of an ability to cut through your mix. So something to be mindful of there when you're thinking of that. So that is our effects. See there? Getting ahead of myself. This one actually is one of my favorites, the modern. almost forgot to do this, guys. So let's try a different shape. Let's go with something in complex, maybe, and maybe this guy here. Excuse me, I feel a sneeze coming on, so bear with me just one moment. All right. Apologize. Thank you, guys. Hopefully there's not another one behind it. You know, you sneeze once and there's always one more. So, all right, so let's take a look at the modern. Now we've got warp and fold. So watch what these guys do to the waveform. See how the warp almost acts like the pulse width, how it squishes it over to one side or the other. Very similar, but what you noticed in the pulse width was it squished over, and then the pulse width had that flat response to the back side of the shape. The warp actually still gives you a wrinkle. It still gives you a little bit of a movement, a little bit of a wave shape. So let's check out fold. Fold. Actually, I think fold will be better represented under the basics again. You see how that's folding? It's almost doubling out left and right. And here you can take a better look too. Let me get the fold back to 0. And now you can see what I'm talking about on the warp. How when I squish it to one side or the other, it still doesn't have a straight flat. There's still some shape or some movement to the back side of that. So that is our effects section within our oscillators. And of course, each oscillator, I'm going to turn on 2, can have individually its own effect. So I can have, say, on this one, an FM, and over here, I could assign the modern, you know, and they can have individually whatever effect we want to assign them. So you get, you know, that really should start to explain to you or let you visualize or think about the true flexibility and the amount of options that are, you know, assignable here. So we've got all the different wave categories, wave shapes, and then if you start to mess with the actual effects, and you know, the possibilities are almost endless from a sound design point of view. It would take you quite a long time to exhaust what options they're presenting you here. So just be experimental. That would be my advice. So let's move on to the next lesson or next tutorial and see what else we can learn about. I think we're going to take a peek maybe over here at the sub. So not sure how these lessons are being lined up, but let's go ahead and jump over to the next one and see what else we can learn.